time I visit, I'm always struck by the energy and vitality, and it just underscores to me in many ways in which Israel is a very vital country. So it's a real pleasure and delight to be here with all of you, and I compliment this forum and the people it brings together. In the time I've been listening, I've certainly learned a great deal, and in the spirit of the forum, there's an active debate as well. And I think, just to take Europe today, one of the challenges of Europe is that you have a combination of problems. You have still the banking sector, you have a sovereign debt sector, and because of the unique aspects of having one currency zone, for some countries you have a competitiveness problem. So, in general, the World Bank and the IMF, I think together are forecasting slightly slower growth this year. But the real challenge is some of the risks and dangers, the largest one being the Eurozone, but not the only one. But I think there's another element. My background is one, as yours, that involves a little bit more political economy. And I think one has to recognize that we're about 4 years into this process. As you said, it's been going on. And the danger now, I think, is as much the politics of trying to get the fiscal and structural reforms as it is the economics. So it's not only the economics of the balance sheet, but it's the politics of reform. And that creates uncertainties that, you know, it's hard to predict, but one has to be watchful for. Sometimes statements or conditions actually create an opportunity. Here, expectations are actually low. So in the European-American relationship, that actually provides an opportunity. So, for example, Chancellor Merkel has talked about transatlantic free trade relationships. Yes. There's a lot of complexities with this, but as somebody who's been a trade negotiator and done a lot of deals and got them through the Congress, I think trying to think along these lines, maybe it's a sectoral agreement with services, but how do you try to have the continents work more cooperatively is exactly right. You know, the pieces are shifting. That can make people nervous, but they can also create opportunities. The actions that the European Central Bank has taken, I think, are quite significant. I think that Chancellor Merkel has started to point people towards a fiscal pact which can draw the German public behind a broader vision of Europe. I think the fact that you have a government in Italy, and I hope one in Spain, that is taking difficult decisions, those are all good things. I think Germany, because it's the only player who can do this, needs to go a step further and point out things that will be done if countries take actions. And sometimes it's easy for people to just take incremental steps, and I think going to this point about shifts of power and influence, you are of course right, Joe, that one should not underestimate the United States, or for that matter, Europe's capabilities. But I also think it bears recognizing that sometimes I worry that in Europe in particular, as the debates are going around about sort of the latest aspect of the summit, that people aren't fully recognizing how others, particularly in emerging markets, are viewing them. This is one of these key moments for the future of the European construction. And that's why I just go back to the point, not bashing Europe. I think that, and this is one of the ironies of history, is Germans who for 60-some years have demonstrated their role as a committed partner in Europe will now have to take a leadership role if that Europe is to be saved. And for those of us who aren't German, one should understand this is not so easy. That every time Germans step forward, there's always a counter-argument. But I think what is building is a recognition that, of course, they won't just give dictates. They're going to have to build a European diplomacy.
We have the word for this, diktat.
I recall it. With the French, with the European construction. But the reason I emphasize it is that, as you know, I was involved with German unification. There are these moments when things move in a different way and the normal course of policy, which is incrementalism, doesn't work. I wouldn't underestimate the importance of models. Economists sometimes will focus on the theories and the principles of economics, and while that's very important, what I've also taken away from the East Asian experience is that political leaders will often look at what works. So what works in Japan, in Korea, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, and then eventually China, and then going on to Vietnam. Political leaders have to have a sense of what happens on the ground in their country, not just a textbook. And the reason I think that's important, if you think about this in a longer term across the Middle East, is while of course Egypt sees itself justifiably as a much larger country, as a country that has a much deeper Arab heritage, even a smaller country like Tunisia or Morocco, the success there in terms of people owning it, participating, the model of development could be very important over time. So I think at the same time where we need to work with all countries, this is going to be an important part of the formula for success.